And as a woman who was brutally beaten for 6 years, who lost a baby at 6 months pregnant due to violence, who had to be moved across the country to be hidden away from her abuser, who stood in court and watched a judge strip him of his parental rights, I want to say this to you, Amber. You don't stand for me. You don't represent me. This is not a backward step for women who have been in domestic violence.
One of the first things she said is, I am so sorry to all those women out there. This is a setback for all women in and outside the courtroom.
This is, however, a backward step for women who call out abuse that doesn't happen, for women who hold up the justice system by making accusations that aren't true.
Flanked by security, Amber Heard doesn't try to hide the bruise on her cheek. Neither does her lawyer.
You guys, she showed a lot of courage today.
You okay, Amber?
A judge granted the actress a temporary restraining order against megastar husband Johnny Depp.
Never did I myself reach the point of striking Miss Heard in any way, nor have I ever struck any woman in my life.
Miss Heard walked into court. The scene was a setup. She tipped off the paparazzi so they would be waiting. They knew exactly where she would pause, which side of her face to photograph. And the photos captured what she wanted them to see, the image of a battered woman.
Do you find that Mr. Depp has proven by clear and convincing evidence that Ms. Heard acted with actual malice? Answer, yes.
When she claimed to be a public figure representing domestic abuse and purported to have a rare vantage point of seeing how institutions protect men accused of abuse, Amber discredited the same system that did everything to cater to her dubious allegations. The same institutions that sent 2 police units to check on her at different times of the day, despite being called by her former friend I.O., who was not only absent from the scene, but was in another state altogether.
We'll just come in and just say, we need to make sure everybody in here is okay, and then we...
Amber condemned the same institutions that gave her a restraining order against someone who was on another continent. The same institutions that she used to get Johnny to pay her $7 million after only 15 months of marriage. One can only wonder what Amber would say if she lived in a developing country where police response time is counted by days, not minutes. Following the jury's resounding rebuke of Amber Heard's claims in the court of law, Amber's lawyer, Elaine Bredenhoft, went on a media tour, re-litigating the matter in the court of public opinion. But that proved to be a futile effort. People watched the trial by the tens of millions and formed their own viewpoint, largely against her client.
All these women who suffer from domestic violence, domestic abuse, they don't have evidence. And basically what this jury said is, unless you pull out your cell phone and you tape record your spouse beating you, you're out of luck.
But Elaine, I think it was bigger than that, because you had the evidence, as you say, but they did not believe her. Why do you think they did not believe her?
I think that a lot of that was that it was Johnny Depp. I think the celebrity status.
But she's a celebrity too.
Bredenhoft attempted to use genuine domestic abuse victims to lump Amber in with them, which angered many, and implied that Amber won the same case in the UK. But the truth is, Amber was not party to that suit, and so was not subject to discovery. It was between Johnny Depp and the tabloid news outlet The Sun, where he was called a wife-beater. The English judge reportedly relied on Amber's claims to rule in favor of the News Group newspapers, the parent company that owns The Sun. But in the U.S. trial, it was between Amber Heard and Johnny Depp.
You know, in this case, the jury not only didn't believe Amber Heard, but in ruling that she acted with actual malice, that means she had the intent to cause harm, right? That's a pretty high standard to have proven.
Bredenhoft claimed unfairness and seemed to blame everyone as to why they lost, including the jury, the judge, and social media.
They did, and to try to suppress as much of the evidence that came in the UK and did not come in the United States. But the other...
And there was evidence excluded on both sides, and you're very familiar. There are rules of evidence that apply. Not everything comes in.
Ben Chu, Johnny's lawyer, would go on TV weeks later to respond to the misleading claims Bredenhoff made during her media spin job.
Right. And suppression may not be the best word, too, that she uses, right? It's inadmissible because of hearsay or not relevant. Or...
Exactly.
Because you're saying it's the celebrity, it's Johnny, it's the people who support him. But what about you and your team?
Elaine also pointed to the jury as possibly even being tainted.
That was almost more disappointing than her statement about evidence being kept out, because I construed that as an affront to the jury. And these are people, and you saw them every day, who gave up 6 weeks of their lives, of their work, of their family.
To anyone who followed closely in trying to defend the indefensible, Bredenhoff struggled and stumbled throughout the trial.
And do you recall? I'm trying.
At times being unprofessional, and even went so far as to mock Johnny, who is the actual victim of that relationship in the eyes of the majority of the world.
Or she played a tape in which Mr. Depp said, "You will not see my eyes again." Do you recall that? I do. And that was Mr. Depp said, "You will not see my eyes again." Do you recall that?
She
and that was
did
during the
not.
mediation process.
She mocked him. She mocked him. I don't think that's good. You'll never see my eyes again. Elaine, but I don't know if mocking Depp is going to play well for the jury, especially when you have Heard's teams out here saying that what you're seeing is Depp's attorneys pounding on the victim and what have you. And then you have Elaine getting on redirect and mocking the plaintiff.
At one point, when Bredenhoff was struggling to appropriately ask a question without being objected to by Johnny's team, even the judge volunteered and helped her.
Objection, no foundation.
Had any impact?
Sustained. Next question.
Are you aware of whether he said anything about that?
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
Do you know?
Objection, hearsay.
I'm asking now. She's allowed to rely on hearsay.
Sustain the objection. Next question.
Do you know whether that plays any role? The degree of success?
Customarily, when it's
Objection, foundation.
Ask her, how does she know?
How do you know?
When witnesses came forward with damning testimonies against her client, Bredenhoff resorted to accusing them of chasing fame. The instance that garnered the most attention is that of Morgan Tremaine, who revealed that the tabloid outlet TMZ, where he worked as a manager, received a tip to send photographers to the courthouse. The tip included that Amber would pose for them to take the infamous pictures and videos of the right side of her face.
You know this case is being televised, right?
I am aware that there are cameras.
And so this gets you your 15 minutes of fame, doesn't
Objection, Your Honor. Argumentative.
I can ask that question.
Overruled.
So I stand to gain nothing from this. I'm actually putting myself kind of in a target of TMZ, a very litigious organization. And I'm not seeking any 15 minutes here. Though you're welcome to speculate. I could say the same thing by taking Amber Heard as a client for you.
A little argumentative, don't you think?
Oh, hardly. I find that to be purely logical.
Bredenhoff's defense depended on questionable evidence that the jury ultimately decided lacked credibility and didn't back her client's dangerous and defamatory claims. A jury member after the trial confirmed this and said of Amber, the majority of the jury felt she was more the aggressor and that there wasn't enough or any evidence that really supported what she was saying.
Did you look at that one when you were comparing his processing speed?
Do I have to answer that question, Your Honor?
You have to answer questions. Yes, sir.
Amber's case wasn't helped by a peculiar cast of characters who she brought to give expert testimonies, such as the psychiatrist David Spiegel.
But thank you. Go ahead. These were your words. I'm just saying back how they're interpreted. Okay. Let's start with the easy question then. Maybe we can... That was pretty easy. Go ahead.
Doctor, you're going to have to just answer the questions.
Okay. Sorry about that. Getting into it.
You need to just answer the questions, Dr. Spiegel.
Elaine Bredenhoff mocked the way Johnny speaks, but David Spiegel made an even more inappropriate comment. He referred to Johnny Depp as an idiot during a deposition.
During your deposition, what were the circumstances under which you decided to call Mr. Depp an idiot?
I'm just going to call Mr. Depp an idiot?
Yeah, you called Mr. Depp an idiot in your deposition. Why?
Okay. So I think it was in the context. I think it was in the, you probably should read the context of it, but I think the context was, and I'm trying to think back.
He also revealed that he based an assessment of Johnny Depp from observing him on TV and in movies.
Have you acted unethically? Yes or no?
No. As an expert witness, I have not acted unethically. And if you want the jury to believe that expert witnesses are unethical, then I guess that's for them to decide.
Yes or no?
For them to decide.
No. Let's go to the next question.
Okay. All I'm saying
Let me ask you about pirates, though. You compared pirates to the to the depositions given in this case.
Then I apologize for what I said.
Oh, man. Dude.
Amber's lawyers would put Catherine Arnold, an expert witness with a vague entertainment consulting job title, with a side hustle of selling this purported expertise as a witness in court cases.
I am an entertainment industry consultant, and I also serve as an expert witness.
She testified to bolster Amber's countersuit and implied that Amber was on a meteoric rise in Hollywood until Johnny's lawyer called her claims a hoax.
I like to call Aquaman really, Amber Heard's Star is Born moment. It was that moment where not only was she a good actor, but she was now world-renowned because
she compared her to A-listers who have been major names in the movie industry for decades, like actor Jason Momoa, who is the main lead in the movie Aquaman, which Amber was part of. Arnold estimated damages of close to $50 million for Amber, claiming she was poised to receive big contracts and become a huge star thanks to this role, and that she had great chemistry with Momoa.
Obviously, when you look at the movie, they have good chemistry, and the poster, they have good chemistry. So I think it's general awareness that they had great chemistry.
When it was time to cross-examine her, she claimed ignorance.
I don't know that for sure, no.
And began to evade the simplest of questions about the actor she claimed she analyzed to reach Amber's supposed damages.
I don't know. I don't follow his fan base.
You don't follow Jason Momoa, but you use him as a comparable to come up with a $45 million.
I said I don't follow his fan base. I understand him as a prominent actor in the business, but I don't follow his fan base.
Isn't fan base one of the things that you analyze?
Of course, you can look at numbers, but I don't keep a watch on his social media feeds.
But that's not the career path that Ms. Heard has had. She's never been the title character in a movie. She hasn't spent years on television. She did, 8 single episodes of TV?
Again, I don't have her resume. If you want to show it to me, we can count them together.
All right.
By contrast, Johnny's expert witnesses included a dignified group of professionals with clear and prominent job titles. For example, entertainment lawyer Richard Marks, with 49 years of experience negotiating major movie deals.
The Star is Born phenomena didn't happen. Ms. Heard starred in one series of 8 episodes, and she earned a healthy fee, $200,000 an episode. But that's 5 times less than the $1 million Ms. Arnold is tossing out, supposedly based on Jason Momoa's quote. She doesn't prove it or give us facts. And Jason Momoa is not a comparable actor. He's been in a series where they shot 78 episodes, 44 episodes, 21 episodes. He played Conan the Barbarian. He was in Game of Thrones.
Or Walter Hamada, who is the president of Warner Brothers for DC-based production, the company that made Aquaman. Mr. Hamada indicated that Amber's acting didn't make for good chemistry with Jason Momoa, that they had to invest lots of resources and efforts to salvage that chemistry in post-production.
Can you give me anything more specific about what it was with Amber Heard and Jason Momoa that was difficult for the chemistry?
No, because it's like what makes a movie star a movie star. Like you know it when you see it, and the chemistry wasn't there.
He further said that the studio was proceeding towards not having her in the sequel.
So in conducting my evaluation, I met with Ms. Heard on 2 separate dates.
Dr. Shannon Curry is a clinical and forensic psychologist who Johnny's team enlisted as an expert witness to evaluate Amber. Unlike Dr. Spiegel, Dr. Curry diagnosed Amber after spending a cumulative 12 hours of one-on-one sessions with her, and after having her undergo a series of extensive psychological tests, not through watching her on TV.
We spent 12 hours directly with one another. However, there were more hours involved in the evaluation with some breaks. The results of Ms. Heard's evaluation supported 2 diagnoses: borderline personality disorder and histrionic personality disorder.
Mental disorders that are consistent with the antipsychotic medicine she was taking and with what her private nurse, Erin Filati's document shows.
She had a very sophisticated way of minimizing any personal problems.
The symptoms Dr. Curry shared are also patterns that are recognized in the audios.
But every time you don't like what I say and you fucking run away, we'll never work out anything. You can't run away every fight.
So borderline personality disorder is a disorder of stability. It's instability. That instability is really driven by this underlying terror of abandonment.
Abandonment and having him leave was her worst nightmare. The second one is what she reported to me, which is if he was going to leave her to de-escalate from the fight, she would strike him to keep him there. She would rather be in a fight than have him leave.
Walking away is necessary, especially between you and I. It is of utmost importance. I'm not going to be in a physical fucking altercation with you.
Then don't.
You fucking hit me last night. You fucking...
I'm not going to get into the details of that fight. You and I both know that you split when there is no physical violence.
When somebody is afraid of being abandoned, they'll make desperate attempts to prevent that from happening. And those desperate attempts could be physical aggression, it could be threatening, it could be harming themselves.
Okay, so let me go, and you go, and I'll speak to you in a couple hours, okay?
Stop, okay?
Why are you saying stop? May I
so,
go?
Please, it causes me so much stress when you walk away from me.
I haven't walked away. You're not saying goodbye. You won't let me fucking leave. Let me leave.
She was just wanted to monopolize his time, and he'd be talking and then she'd bring him over and she was all over him, and I don't know exactly how to feel about that, but it stuck out to me that she just wanted him to herself.
Ms. Heard came over and kind of interjected. She seemed a little annoyed that Mr. Depp wasn't spending time with her. She was yelling at him. He was kind of cowering and seemed almost afraid.
So the thing these people fear most is being abandoned, but over time, the anger, the explosive anger that they show when somebody is needing space, or when somebody's really not doing anything wrong, because a lot of times they read into things that they perceive as being a slight to them or being somebody intending to harm them that actually isn't happening. They'll exaggerate it.
You're about to fucking split, and I don't want to feel like that. You made me feel meaningless.
You threw me out of the bed, room.
No, why wouldn't I if I know that you're about to split? I mean, that's what I'm saying. You always
about to split.
You always split, so that's...
And they'll explode. They'll react in this heightened manner that is just exhausting for their partners. Oftentimes, their partners will try to make them happy at first and really allow themselves to be a punching bag, thinking that they can somehow solve this problem, that somehow they can make this better. And eventually, it just overwhelms them.
I wanted to try to make it work. I thought maybe I could help her.
Call it out. Call me out on it and help me.
I will try.
Help me, because you might not even realize I'm doing it. You gotta help me.
I will try.
It can't be an excuse to leave.
I will try to help you. If I try to help you and I can help you, fuck what I leave. If I try to help you and I can't help you, say, baby, take in an hour. I'm in my fucking office.
The list of the prominent people that testified for Johnny includes supermodel Kate Moss, who is known for being a very private person, Amber admitted in court that she assaulted Johnny. As an excuse, she said she heard a rumor that he threw Kate Moss down the stairs and was afraid he'd do that to her sister, so she punched him.
I just, in my head, instantly think of Kate Moss and the stairs, and I swung at him.
Ms. Moss, have you ever before today testified in any kind of court proceeding?
No, I have never.
Did Mr. Depp push you in any way down the stairs?
No.
During the course of your relationship, did he ever push you down any stairs?
No, he never pushed me, kicked me, or threw me down any stairs.
To my dying day, will stand by every word of my testimony.
After the trial, Amber followed the footsteps of Bredenhoft and went on TV to salvage her image and spin the narrative once more.
You say you were responding, but there is evidence. There are tapes in which you acknowledge hitting. There are tapes in which you say, I started the fight.
I know much has been made of these audio tapes. They were first leaked online after being edited. What you would hear in those clips are not evidence of what was happening. It was evidence of a negotiation of how to talk about that with your abuser.
But I am looking at a transcript that says, he says, you start physical fights, and you say, I did start a physical fight. I can't promise you I won't get physical again.
I'm sorry that I didn't hit you across the face in a proper slap, but I was hitting you. I was not punching you. Babe, you're not punched.
Don't tell me what it feels like to be punched.
You know, even a lot of fights have been around a long time. I know. Yeah.
Oh, you fucking have
You didn't get punched. You got hit. I'm sorry I hit you like this. But I did not punch you. I did not fucking deck you. I fucking was hitting you. I don't know what the promotion of my actual hand was, but you're fine. I did not hurt you. I did not punch you. I was hitting you.
But you're testifying and you're telling me today I never started a physical fight, and here you are on tape saying you did.
As I testified on the stand about this, is that when your life is at risk, not only will you take the blame for things that you shouldn't take the blame for.
As opposed to Amber, once the trial came to an end and the world was waiting for days for the jury's verdict, Johnny, after telling his story, seemed to have already moved on. He did not even attend court on the day of the verdict. He was in Europe performing music with his band. Shortly thereafter, he wrapped the filming of a movie in France where he starred as Louis XV, made and sold a collection of paintings for $3.6 million within 3 hours of their listing. Through an initiative he called Never Fear the Truth, he donated $800,000 from the proceeds of his art to a children's hospital in Australia and Los Angeles Children's Hospital, the same hospital Amber bragged about donating half of the $7 million divorce settlement to 6 years prior, where in fact she never did.
$7 million in total was donated to, I split it between the ACLU and Children's Hospital of Los Angeles.
ACLU is a human rights organization.
Sorry, ACLU is a prominent...
As of today, you have not paid $3.5 million of your own money to the ACLU. Yes or no?
I have not yet.
And as of today, you have not paid $3.5 million of your own money to the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles, correct?
I have not yet. Johnny sued me.
You had all of the $7 million for 13 months before Mr. Depp sued you, and you chose not to pay it to the charities you pledged it to. Is that correct, Ms.
I disagree with your characterization of that.
Defamation cases are particularly difficult to win, but Johnny Depp, backed by substantial evidence and through a competent team of lawyers and experts, he was able to prove malice on the part of Amber. Johnny enjoyed an unprecedented level of support from the world and from many people in the entertainment industry. Perhaps the most meaningful action of support came from the megastar singer Rihanna, who herself is a survivor of domestic violence at the hand of pop star Chris Brown, a legitimate one.
Inside your nose was swollen, discolored, red.
That is correct.
This is a picture of you and Mr. Depp at the event the night after Mr. Depp allegedly whacked you in the face so hard you thought he had broken your nose.
He did whack me in the face, and I did think he broke my nose.
While wearing chunky big rings.
That's correct.
And this is you the night after.
Yes, it is.
He had no soul in his eyes. Just blank. He was clearly blacked out. There was no person when I looked at him. It's almost as though he had nothing to lose. He has so much to lose. It wasn't the same person that says, I love you. It was not those, it definitely weren't those eyes.
Valiantly, Rihanna survived that ordeal, moved on, and achieved a level of success no one expected. She even became America's youngest self-made billionaire, thanks to her music and fashion brand Fenty. With a move that loudly communicated support to a fellow survivor, Rihanna enlisted Johnny to star in a fashion TV show that promotes her ultra-successful fashion brand. However, not everyone was supportive as Rihanna, or as elated as the millions of people who followed the trial. During and after the trial, an interesting occurrence would take place. Legions of white feminists and highbrows from major publications and institutions pushed publish on countless articles and statements. In direct and indirect ways, they theorized and condemned the verdict, the trial, and its coverage as being unjust and misogynistic.
To light. This was already litigated in a British courtroom. So point by point, you could go through all the evidence, but either this was a case of what one expert called mutual abuse, or Amber Heard was the primary victim. There's sort of no other gloss on the facts of this case.
I'm not sitting here bitching about it, am I? You are. That's the difference between me and you. You're a fucking baby.
Because you start physical fights?
You're such a baby! Grow the fuck up,
Because you start physical fights?
I did start a physical fight.
Yeah, you did, so I had to get the fuck out of there.
We always split.
I have to get out of the room if it's violent.
It was before it was violent.
They even came after people on social media for pointing out their lack of objectivity and ignorance on this matter.
Raven Smith at Vogue magazine says why it's time to believe Amber Heard. At the end of the article, she closes with, "It's time to draw a line. It's time to believe women, all women. It's time to believe Amber Heard. The British courts believed Depp beat his ex-wife. What's stopping the rest of us?" This picture stops me from believing her because I cannot fathom that the person in this picture was beaten senseless the night before this picture was taken, and that she has 2 black eyes and possibly a broken nose, and that just makeup is covering it up. I'm physically incapable of believing that.
The conundrum for Amber Heard and white feminism is that she was believed as the person who craves fights in the private audios.
We cannot work it out if you run away to the bathroom every time.
Listen to me. Listen to me. A boxer can't go 12 rounds without a fucking minute break.
I'm not giving you a minute break. You do it at minute 3 at the beginning of an argument.
No.
But no objective person believed the innocent victim she portrayed on the stand.
Yes, as he was trying to get into the door, into the room, I was trying to escape in.
And you accused him of being a baby for not wanting to be in a physical fight with you, right?
Incorrect. I accused him of being a baby for complaining about me hitting him when he was trying to get through the door. I was trying to barricade.
And Mr. Depp was hiding from you in the bathroom. Isn't that right, Ms. Heard?
Incorrect.
Well, Mr. Depp said on that recording, "I opened the bathroom door when you were knocking on it." Doesn't he?
I don't know if he said that.
The bathroom door when you were knocking on it. After a few times I opened.
So they tagged labels of hate and misogyny on social media users who dared to weigh in on this case, despite the fact that the majority of those users are women, some of whom are actual survivors of domestic violence.
And as a woman who was brutally beaten for 6 years, who lost a baby at 6 months pregnant due to violence, I want to say this to you, Amber. You don't stand for me. You don't represent me.
Survivors recognize other survivors, and we don't recognize you as a survivor. We recognize you as our abuser. We are so happy your ex-husband, Johnny Depp, won his defamation lawsuit against you. It was a big, huge victory to shift us into a direction where we stop fixating on gender. Abuse is abuse. Abuse knows no gender, no socioeconomic status, no race, no color, religion, no creed. None of that. It can happen to anybody.
The white feminists took a cavalier stance, enforcing their problematic agendas through their articles, as if their humanities degrees validate their opinions over those of actual survivors, or grant them unique skills to see in the evidence what the world can't. Their articles attempted to gaslight their audience. It seemed as if they took a page out of Amber's playbook when she tells Johnny that what he witnessed occurring is not really what occurred and that it's all in his head.
That's your problem, and that's your whole thing that you've created.
I don't.
5 bathrooms, 2 bedrooms.
You were coked out of your fucking mind. You were fucking crazy. You didn't sleep for days. You were delusional.
What are you fucking talking about? Every fucking fight, there's a new thing that you've convinced yourself is a lie.
I said to you, Amber, tell Travis what you just did. Did you just fucking, did you punch me in the fucking jaw? Did you fucking kick? Did you? And you wouldn't say fucking, you said, I don't know what you're talking about. I never fucking.
Trying to make less of what had happened by repeating some story to me that didn't make any sense, and it certainly didn't make any sense since I was there and I was the target.
This brings into question whether these white feminist opinion writers even followed the trial and its evidence closely, or they took their stances simply because the loser happens to be a white woman. It becomes difficult to try and figure out which is worse: following the trial and examining the evidence and still come to the conclusion that the verdict is unjust, or not following it at all and still taking that position simply because of gender. And it's disturbing when this position is taken by those who are paid and backed by giant media platforms to be thought leaders in our society. How can they openly support someone who can be heard admitting to abusing her husband, threatening him that she becomes a human cancer when he retreats for more than a few minutes from her dangerous volatility during arguments?
I just need to know that we've talked about it. Otherwise, I'm dealing with cancer. You have to realize that, in that kind of situation, a few minutes is fine, but then after a certain point, it becomes way worse. It's going to become way harder to reason, to rationalize with.
Only when examining this brazen white feminist backlash within the context of the American history that shocking answers emerge. Since the days of slavery, when black and brown women were violated with impunity, and throughout American history, many white women have been weaponizing false claims of assault, especially sexual assault. They would primarily level them against men and children of color. The reasons are many. One of the common ones is to justify forbidden relationships.
I have 2 daughters and 2 sons, and if there's too many colored people around here, I definitely will get out. I'm not thinking I don't want her associating with colored people, period.
Well, I'm very definitely against mixed marriages, and that's eventually what it's going to come to. If children are raised together, they're not going to...
Interracial relationships have always been met with negative social ramifications. Prolific historian Thomas Foster published a paper titled "The Sexual Abuse of Black Men Under American Slavery." In it, he notes that even some of the white abolitionists who were working to free the enslaved black population considered sexual relationships between black men and white women to be dangerous to the cause because it insults the virtue of Southern white womanhood. Thomas Foster references Lincoln Prize-winning historian Martha Hoax, who looks into the dynamic between black men and white women after slavery ended in the scholarly paper titled "The Sexualization of Reconstruction Politics." Hoax details that white women who engaged in sexual liaisons with black men were mistreated by the Klan and the white community. Their reputation would suffer, and they become regarded as women of low character. She writes that a judge referred to a white woman that falls into that category as one of those low-down tramps which are scattered about the country. So many times when a white woman is found to be having a sexual relationship with a black man, she would accuse that black man of coercion and sexual assault to avoid the shaming and the abuse from the racist white community. That often meant a death sentence for the accused black man. Hoax writes, a black man merely accused of raping a white woman could be lynched. She cites a white judge in Georgia from after the Civil War saying the rape of white women had become vastly more frequent than during slavery. She gives the example of Charles Clark, a black man who was accused by the white daughter of a Methodist preacher. The judge found insufficient evidence for conviction, but Clark was returned to jail, supposedly pending further investigation. 36 undistinguished Klansmen would turn up at that jail and shoot Clark to death. In another case that took place in 1866, Hoax details how a businessman described witnessing a black man who was burned to death in front of 1,000 people after being accused of the rape of a white woman. He said they never had a trial or proof or anything of that sort. This vicious pattern is not unique to the era of slavery and post-Civil War. In her book, White Women, Rape, and the Power of Race in Virginia, 1900 to 1960, Lisa Dorr writes, the ability to accuse black men of rape gave all white women an effective tool for getting themselves out of compromising situations. Crying rape against black men fed into white fears about black men as rapists, helping them divert attention away from their own social and sexual indiscretions. Dorr provides plethora of cases of white women doing just that during that period. This is well illustrated in the 1915 blockbuster movie The Birth of a Nation, a film that was so successful that it was screened in the White House at the time. It reinforces the idea that black men are savages with an animalistic drive to rape white women, and it justifies the need of forces such as the Ku Klux Klan to protect them. Remnants of such notions are still witnessed in society today.
Please don't come close to me.
Sir, I'm asking you to stop recording me.
Please don't come close to me.
Please take your phone off.
Please don't come close to me.
I'm taking pictures. Calling the cops.
Please call the cops.
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Please tell them whatever you like.
I'm sorry, I'm in a ramble, and there's a man, African-American, who's a bicycle helmet. He's recording me and threatening me and my dog. There is an African-American man, I'm in Central Park. He's recording me and threatening myself and my dog. I'm being threatened by a man in the ramble. Please send the cops immediately.
In 1955, Emmett Till, a 14-year-old black boy, was tortured and lynched by a group of white men after Carolyn Bryant, a white woman, felt disrespected at her family's grocery store in Mississippi. She alleged that Emmett whistled at her while he was inside the store briefly. That was enough for a mob of white racist men to brutalize him to death.
Carolyn Bryant Dunham is 88 years old and living in North Carolina. The release of this manuscript comes just days after the discovery of an arrest warrant from 1955 that included Bryant Dunham's name, a fact that she acknowledges in the manuscript. In it, Carolyn Bryant Dunham basically sticks to her story. Carolyn Bryant Dunham's husband, Roy Bryant, and his half-brother, J.W. Milam, were tried and acquitted for Emmett Till's murder back in 1955. 4 months later, Bryant and Milam admitted to killing Emmett Till in an article in Look magazine.
As much as we like to pretend such injustices are a thing of the past, they aren't. And history, if not learned from, does repeat itself.
A white woman who was purchasing something inside makes the claim that a young black child sexually assaulted her.
That's right, the son grabbed my
It prompts her to call 911, all while the boy and his sister weep.
Sexually assaulted by a child.
Surveillance video obtained by Pix11 from inside the Sahara Deli appears to vindicate the young boy, clearly showing him walking by, rushing out to leave with his family.
I was standing at the counter. I was sexually assaulted.
The woman at the center of the controversy is sticking to her account, accusing the boy's mother of threatening her, even saying during the now viral altercation that it was the child's mother who claimed she was a police officer, despite the footage clearly showing otherwise.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm a cop.
All right, so cop, did you say that?
I did not say that.
Our interview interrupted by residents who say they've had enough of Klein, who they say has a history of calling the police.
It would be extremely prohibitive to recount all the documented false sexual assault accusations throughout American history, given their sheer amount.
The answers as to why I was supposed to go through what I went through.
The end of Brian Banks' ordeal was marked by tears after a judge threw out the rape charge that had sent him to prison for more than 5 years.
And although they befall black men more than those of other races, in our current climate, this predicament is not exclusive to black men.
Everyone in my family thinks I'm a sex offender. They think I'm a rapist. Everyone does.
And as society becomes more and more complex, so do the reasons for weaponizing false accusations.
Prosecutors say Uvino made up the rape claim because she didn't want to upset another student she was interested in.
A former girlfriend accused him of carving an X into her chest with a box cutter, but now she's the one facing jail time.
She told police she was traumatized, and that's why she told investigators Christopher attacked her last year.
I was going to sleep hoping I wouldn't wake up.
Hudson says he and his ex-girlfriend Melinda Denham had consensual sex, but after an argument, he left. She called police.
She called me the whole entire night and was saying, look, get my cell phone back, I won't press charges.
So Banks arranged a meeting with a private investigator who videotaped the whole thing. Gibson later explained she hadn't wanted to say that publicly for fear of losing a $1.5 million settlement that her family had gotten after suing the school district.
At times, dangerous false allegations can be leveled to express displeasure with simple everyday interactions, such as being asked to place a dog on a leash by a bird watcher.
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Please tell them whatever you like.
I'm being threatened by a man in the Ramble. Please send the cops immediately.
There are 68 organizations under the Innocence Network in the United States. Their mission is to exonerate the wrongfully convicted. The National Registry of Exonerations documents that 3,374 exonerations of the wrongfully imprisoned took place since 1989 in the U.S., after spending a combined 28,770 years in prison. That's more than the entire current prison population and pre-trial detainees of Finland, more than half of those of Sweden, and almost as the entire prison population and pre-trial detainees of Ireland, Denmark, Norway, and many other countries. 47% of the exonerated are African Americans, despite making up only 13% of the American population.
Like if I get on the elevator and I see a little white woman, I'm more scared than she is.
Overturning convictions is almost impossible, so these numbers only reflect a fraction of the wrongfully imprisoned, and they don't take into account the wrongfully accused population that was found innocent on its way to prison or settled their cases.
Prosecutors offered plea deals, 1, 3, 5 years. He refused.
No, I didn't want to take no deal because I'm not a criminal.
He served his full 25-year sentence and was released in 2009. The Innocence Project has worked 13 years to clear his record.
While not all these overturned convictions were the result of false accusations and perjury, a whopping 2,054 were. That's 61%. In other words, 2,054 people were spending combined tens of thousands of years in prison because someone lied and said they did something they didn't do. That something is 48% of the time a no crime, meaning someone accused them of a crime that didn't happen in the first place. And a whopping 77% of those crimes that didn't happen are fabricated sexual assaults.
Of the crime. And then later on, they question the victim. The victims just blatantly tell the truth. I made the whole story up. It was a lie. Like every day, I actually sit there and think about the person that put me in prison. For 26 years, you sit there, wake up early in the morning, you think about that person. I brush my teeth, I think, just crack of dawn, the first thing you think about that person. Before you go to bed, you think about that person. Why you do this to me?
Coach said she lied about the sexual assault that sent Jonathan Montgomery away for 4.5 years.
Aaron remembered they posed in this photograph at 7:02 p.m., about 18 minutes before the alleged attack happened, more than an hour away.
How scary it is that if she had chosen any other day, it would basically be his word versus hers, and he'd be looking at 99 years in a Texas prison.
False accusations are not penalized appropriately.
A University of Alabama student is facing charges for falsely claiming she was sexually assaulted near campus.
Mannion right now is facing a large fine and possibly up to 1 year in jail if she's convicted.
6 months in prison for lying about being raped.
180 days in jail if convicted.
A 2-month sentence, which she can serve on weekends beginning this weekend.
35 days in jail, then an ankle monitor.
I don't feel that's justice.
According to most laws in the United States, they only rise to a misdemeanor charge, similar to petty theft or shoplifting. The maximum sentence a judge can hand down by law is 180 days in jail in addition to fines, regardless of what the accusation is.
What would you like to say to Jonathan Montgomery?
I am very sorry for the mistake that I've made and the lie that I told. And this is me taking responsibility for that.
The disparity between the mandated lengths of sexual assault sentences and those of false accusations is not the result of happenstance. It is a design of systemic racism, which historically enabled white women to make false accusations, cry rape against black and poor white men, put them in the shackles of prison in order to fill the free labor shortage that was left by the abolition of slavery, with no real consequences if the allegations are found to be untrue. By contrast, other countries, like England, punish proven false accusations, using sentences as harsh as those of the alleged crime.
Her arms around his neck. She kept pulling him closer.
When I saw the videos, I was very relieved that that was proof.
She led him by the hand out of the bar. On the sidewalk, Premji said the girl introduced him to her roommate, where she made sexual gestures behind his back.
Court records show Temple police moved quickly to arrest Christopher, building a case in 2 days based on the word of his accuser.
Police departments and prosecutors take longer to charge hoaxers to protect themselves from litigations that stem from not properly investigating those matters. The identification of the accuser often remains concealed because she benefits from the safeguards that are put in place to protect genuine sexual violence victims.
Now, KVUE is not naming Christopher's accuser because she has not been charged with a crime. Prosecutors say the matter remains under review.
By the time the false accuser is charged, the dust has already settled, and for the accused, the damage has already been done.
Espinosa said hard time isn't the worst thing that happened. His mother committed suicide while he was in prison. She was convinced her son was there for life.
You know, my mom died thinking that I'm a rapist.
And then you've got your family, you've got your kids. My mom, thankfully, didn't get to read any of this, because that would have killed her.
Their livelihood and reputation are permanently damaged, even after they're found innocent.
The Army National Guardsman lost his civilian job and was out of work for nearly 6 months after the arrest.
I've been behind on my car payment ever since.
Premji said the girl was the aggressor, and last Saturday, a judge agreed after seeing the video, cleared him of all charges. But Premji's innocence will have to be proven once again. He says USC's Office of Equity and Diversity is conducting its own investigation.
I could get suspended or expelled from the university even though the judge has declared me innocent.
Shannon Hudson is worried that while his rape case has been dropped, the stigma hasn't.
And I've always got to worry about an employer saying, well, what about this? What about that?
There are still people who will believe that it happened. And it's a kind of stain that's very, very difficult, if not impossible, to completely remove.
False allegations and miscarriage of justice don't discriminate. They can befall the rich and the poor alike.
He struggled to support his family from a cleaning business, purposely in his wife's name.
We lived between $16,000 and $19,000 a year for a family of 4. So, very tight.
And for Johnny, his family has been completely wrecked by all of this stuff, and it's not fair.
But the many who find themselves in this unenviable position don't have the resources to attempt retrieving their lives through the costly legal system.
Christopher spent the next 24 hours in jail. His parents paid a $150,000 bond, then thousands more for a lawyer.
You don't have any money. You can't hire an attorney. I didn't have a choice.
Most end up accepting plea deals and live with the reputational and financial ramifications for the rest of their lives.
Defense attorney at the time gave him a choice: plead no contest to rape or risk a trial that could send him to prison for life.
When you go into that courtroom, the jury is going to see a big black teenager, and you're automatically going to be assumed guilty. Those are her exact words.
He took the deal, went to prison, and had to register as a sex offender.
The deal also required him to register as a sex offender, a shameful mark by his name that followed him everywhere.
I wanted a good name. When I was 18, I took my daddy's name, Walter Mansfield. I used to be a Brown. I took my stepdad's name. I wanted it to be a good name.
There is a lot of stigma associated with sexual crimes. They will always have to explain to somebody where they've been for the last 24 years.
Espinosa took the plea deal. He said he couldn't trust the justice system to get it right the second time.
It's almost like a dreaming. Like a dreaming, gonna wake up.
His dad was there to greet him as he left jail.
Love you so much.
That doesn't minimize the consequences that befall people of Johnny Depp's fame and riches.
Telling people that I was a drunken, cocaine-fueled menace who beat women. Suddenly in my 50s, it's over. You know, you're done. So no matter the outcome of this trial, the second the allegations were made against me, I lost. Then.
The more famous the accused person is, the more widespread are the accusations. Their name becomes synonymous with those allegations in the minds of people around the globe, regardless of their validity. And those effects extend beyond the accused. People like Johnny Depp often have hundreds of family members, agents, and employees that depend on his success.
You've already testified you've known him for 42 years. You didn't pay rent at the penthouse, correct?
No, no one did.
Between December 18th, 2018, which is the date that Ms. Heard's op-ed appeared, and October 2020, to what extent, if any, did Mr. Depp perform in any studio films?
0. No studio films. With respect to Johnny, it was catastrophic because it was coming from, a first-person account. It was not from a journalist. It was not from someone observing. It was from someone saying, this happened to me.
When his image is tainted and his ability to earn a living with studios is hampered because of unsubstantiated allegations, the livelihood and the well-being of the people that are associated with him suffers as well.
I think you testified already. You're pretty angry with Ms. Heard, right?
About all the phony pictures that were taken and put in tabloids, and about the fake narrative and the way she's got a a fraudulent DV claim to extort and blackmail a man. Yeah, that kind of got me
Pretty angry with it.
frustrated, confused, angry, upset. Yes.
It made me sick, actually. It really made me feel ill. It made me sad, frustrated. I can't even find the word.
So many people have been affected by this malicious lie that she started and she created, and it's gone out the door and around the world. And so I can't even paint anymore. I've stopped painting for the last who knows how many years, and that's affected by stuff. And for Johnny, you know, his family has been completely wrecked by all of this stuff, and it's not fair. It's not right what she did and what happened for so many people to get affected from this. It's insane.
The long-lasting negative effects extend beyond Johnny's immediate circle. When Amber walked into court on May 27, 2016, with dubious marks on her face that seemed to appear 7 days after she last saw Johnny and mysteriously disappeared the following day, it was the same day Alice Through the Looking Glass was released, a $160 million production. Instead of that day being a celebration and a feel-good marketing of the movie that required years of work and a collective effort by thousands of people, it became a global PR crisis. The leading star of the film is being accused of domestic violence by his wife. Amber's photos are plastered all over the globe. Who would want to go see a film led by a domestic abuser? Especially when the economic and the reputational lynchings are being advocated for by white feminists using articles such as that of Alyssa Rosenberg on the Washington Post, which is titled, "What Will It Take for Hollywood to Drop Famous Dangerous Men?" accompanied with a photo from when the paparazzi received a tip to go to court so that Amber can pose for them to display the right side of her face. Just 4 days after the allegations became public and the film's release, Rosenberg and white feminists have already tried and convicted Johnny. As punishment, they decided to place public pressure on studios to cut his livelihood and that of those that depend on him.
Taking a man's livelihood away from him is akin to killing him.
While the false allegations may have helped Amber's name get mentioned amongst A-listers like Angelina Jolie and Gwyneth Paltrow during the era of the Hollywood version of the Me Too movement, and reportedly aided her in parlaying her victim persona into paid speeches on the subject of domestic violence.
A community response team for domestic violence.
In the long run, Amber harmed her own reputation and sabotaged herself financially. According to reports, she even negatively affected the release of a major film that she is part of, Aquaman 2, a $205 million budget film. The box office returns for that movie are expected to suffer because of Amber's new image. Close to 5 million people signed a petition that calls for her removal from the film. Again, tainting the efforts of the thousands of people involved in the making of yet another major movie. The lynching that takes place today for men falsely accused of sexual assault and abuse is not as barbarous as in the days of slavery and post-Civil War. And although it affects black men more than men of other races, it's not unique to black men. The worst thing that happens to the men who are falsely accused of sexual violence are long prison sentences sought by overzealous prosecutors in tailored suits, not by unenlightened Southern white men in Klan hoods. Its economic and reputational lynching is exacted by overeducated white feminists in flowery dresses and snazzy eyewear, and is not done under the protection of the institution of slavery, nor does it take place in the woods of Mississippi, but behind the headquarter walls of major media institutions and even historical universities. A white feminist Stanford professor took to Twitter to attack Camille Vasquez, the Hispanic female lawyer who helped exonerate Johnny from Amber's claims. She called her things such as a pick-me girl, desperate for male validation, a woman who sucks up to men to prove herself as a real lawyer when all she did is her job. She even mocked Johnny Depp using immature and disparaging comments, calling him Limp Dick Depp or Decomposing Depp. And she's still employed at Stanford, a historical college with a $36 billion endowment, roughly the entire gross domestic product of the Republic of the Congo, a nation of 81 million people. In white feminism, anything short of accepting the white female accuser at her word is met with similar backlash and considered a setback for all women. The ability to make false allegations almost rises to a privilege in their world. Any challenge to the accusations is considered misogyny, humiliation, and a setback for women. It appears that these white feminist opinion writers have, knowingly or unknowingly, made it a goal to keep this nefarious privilege alive. They hold positions of prestige and power and have the loudest microphones, which they make sure to use to disparage anyone who dare challenge their extreme beliefs. White feminists occupy the darkest corner of feminism. They often compare the atrocities of racism to sexism, despite that white women actively participated in those atrocities. White feminism benefits its already privileged subscribers by creating a clash between men and women. At times, it does that by hijacking the causes of intersectional feminism. Intersectional feminists work to ensure the rights of all women and even men from all demographics. The Me Too movement is a prime example of this phenomenon. It was started by a black woman, Tarana Burke, in 2006, after working with young black and brown female victims of sexual violence who are, according to the American Psychological Association, at a disproportionate risk of it. 40% of confirmed sex trafficking survivors are black. For every black woman who reports rape, 15 go unreported. 1 in 4 black girls will be sexually abused by the age of 18. And according to the U.S. Department of Justice, 1 in 5 black women are survivors of rape. Tarana Burke founded the Me Too movement to combat this reality. But those who learned about it in 2017, chances the face they have for it is that of white, rich actresses who were victims of sexual harassment in Hollywood and white feminists complaining about awards.
They are back to not nominating women across the board other than Best Actress, right? And if they could nominate men for Best Actress, they would. So yes, the Academy has incredible power, and the more their members vote for women as opposed to just guys who are their drinking buddies, which is really what it is. It's always traditionally been men who are their drinking buddies.
Where were these white feminists when the Me Too originally launched in 2006? Researcher Monica Williams writes extensively about white feminism's exploitation of social issues and its historic usage of sexuality and crying rape to oppress men, especially those of color, which explains the obsession and the focus they have towards sexuality and indecency laws. Williams also describes white feminism as a racist ideology that claims to speak for all women, a notion that can be observed in the articles that came out after Amber was found liable for her malicious lies.
One of the first things she said is, "I am so sorry to all those women out there. This is a setback for all women in and outside the courtroom."
Some of these white feminists did not only excoriate Johnny, but anyone who dared be critical of Amber. They even criticized independent lawyers and legal analysts who create videos on YouTube to break down court cases and simplify the complexities of the U.S. legal system.
I am in Virginia for, there aren't that many great reasons to be here, but I've got two. I'm visiting with some awesome other YouTubers, and we have been attending the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial, which has been absolutely wild today.
They accuse them of misogyny and of financially benefiting from the humiliation of a woman. But the irony is that this barrage of white women writers also get paid by their publications to discuss issues such as this case. Only they do it from the comfort of their lofty offices and under the protection of the publications they work for, while the independent lawyers and content creators are actually in the field obtaining the 360 view. Some of them traveled from other states and even Canada to Virginia, where the trial was taking place. Without the benefit of media passes, they had to sleep outside the courthouse to secure a seat in the gallery in order to cover this highly publicized case.
We still have Justice for the Line going.
One might say they have more journalistic traits than the feminist writers that criticize them.
I spent 6 weeks at the courthouse, which was incredibly hard to do, all day there, and then figuring out a place online at night to get in the next day. And it was constantly filled with anxiety and stress, so it was a lot to take on.
Taylor Lawrence, one of these writers who works for the Washington Post, engaged heavily in stoking the fire of this culture war between traditional media and independent creators. She wrote a lengthy hit piece targeted at these legal analysts for being opportunistic. The article was full of falsities. She inflated the amount of money these legal analysts earned during the trial. Lorenz claimed she reached out to some of them for comments, where in fact she hadn't. Even the Washington Post admitted this. They also admitted that she wrongfully attributed a quote to Johnny's former lawyer about communicating with these content creators. The Post went so far to remove some of her false statements from the story and did not note their removal, which by their own admission violated their corrections policy. Hollywood attracts a strange makeup of people, from genuine artists, business people, to talentless groups with an insatiable hunger for fame and attention. When Amber went on TV, bragging about donating her divorce settlement to the Children's Hospital, where in fact she hadn't, is an example of that. Or when she was giving speeches about domestic violence during the height of the Me Too movement.
Social justice. She has spearheaded policies to better serve residents of all ages.
Has sort of that impressionistic speech, very flowery, very enthusiastic, but nothing's really being said. The moment your attention wears away, because they're so demanding for attention, that's when they might take the victim role or the princess role and even make up stories. Sometimes those stories are to bolster the victim role. Sometimes those stories are just to make them look more interesting or accomplished in their mind so that they can get respect and attention that way.
Jussie Smollett is an actor of a similar caliber as Amber. Much like her, he made sure to make his stances on social issues known to the world. Jussie is mostly known for his supporting role on the hit show Empire.
Like right here, right now, where we're at right now. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's really good.
Fury on the streets. Black Lives Matter and Blue Lives Matter protesters square off. Protesters punched, flags burned, and it culminates with a violent confrontation with police.
When the country's racial tension was at an all-time high in 2019, and the national conversation revolved around racial justice, Jussie alleged a racist and homophobic attack on him. He claimed that two masked men assaulted him, threw a noose around his neck while shouting racist and homophobic slurs at him.
Officers met with the Empire actor in his apartment right after the alleged attack in January.
His face is blurred because at the time he was considered a victim. Smollett shows officers a noose he said was put around his neck.
There's a bleach for me.
He then briefly enjoyed an outpour of sympathy, but that was short-lived. Not too long after that, it was uncovered by the police of Chicago that Jussie paid the two alleged perpetrators $3,500 to stage the hate crime.
Surveillance video shows the brothers Smollett allegedly hired to help him, climbing into a cab disguised in what looks like hazmat suits that one of them tightens around his face, headed for a prearranged attack site.
Smollett was later charged with felony disorderly conduct for filing a false report. Ultimately, he was found guilty of 5 felony counts of lying to the police.
He's involved in the community. He cares deeply about social justice issues. And for you now to sit here, convicted of hoaxing, hate crimes, racial hate crimes, and homophobic hate crimes, the hypocrisy is just astounding. You're not a victim of a racial hate crime. You're not a victim of homophobic hate crime. You're just a charlatan pretending to be a victim of a hate crime. And that's shameful.
In 2022, Smollett was sentenced to a 5-month jail sentence, a total of 30 months of felony probation, and he was ordered to pay $25,000 and over $120,000 in restitution to the city of Chicago.
You paid in advance by check. Not necessarily a good idea. The check was shown into evidence. You chose a date. You chose a time. You chose a location. You had props procured. Hit masks. Nobody should see you. And then you did rehearsal.
Judge James Lynn, before sentencing Jussie, was conflicted as to what his motives were before coming to the conclusion that it was for attention.
You were making, the evidence showed, close to $2 million a year when this happened. I don't think money motivated you at all. But the only thing I can find is that you really craved the attention and you wanted to get the attention and you were so invested in issues of social justice and you knew that this was a sore spot for everybody. You wanted to make yourself more famous, and for a while it worked. Everybody was talking about you. The lights are on you. You were actually throwing a national pity party for yourself. I understand you craved the attention so much, but why would you betray something like social justice issues?
I'm just up behind on the step.
And when they feel that they're not the center of attention, you will see some strange things, making up stories to try to get attention, often taking on a victim or a princess role, those two roles in particular.
In an eerily similar way to Amber, Jussie also went on television steering and spinning the narrative into a direction that's favorable to him. But just like Amber, the world saw through his story. Even the interviewers appeared in disbelief at Amber and Jussie's ability to look one right in the eyes and proceed to double down on their debunked claims. There was a silence after the legal process run its course in the Jussie Smollett case among African American writers and social justice activists. They recognized that blindly supporting Jussie simply because he's a black person would only hurt the fight against racism. They didn't rush to describe the verdict against him with words such as chilling, like Jessica Winter wrote in The New Yorker following the Amber Heard verdict, or travesty, like the New York Times columnist Michelle Goldberg did in her op-ed in the Baltimore Sun.